This video is called 11 Habits for Growing in Your Photography, for growing as a photographer. So how do you do that? Why do you need to do that? Here's why. Here's what I've discovered. There's points in time where you don't feel like you're growing. You don't feel like you're making any change. You don't think you're making a difference. The things you're doing are not resulting in anything positive for your art, for your creativity. So these habits, I think, will help with that. They'll help get you over those times where you don't feel like growth is happening. So that's the goal of this video. There are 11 habits for growing in your photography as a photographer. So habit number one for growing as a photographer is to be patient, to wait, to know that it's going to take time. It always seems to take longer than you think. You see things and you want to create them, and your images just aren't quite looking like that. And so you have to be patient with yourself. Know that it's going to take time. There is no substitute for that. There is no substitute for however long it takes you to get to where you want. Here's the other thing with that. You're never going to be done. Hopefully, as an artist, as a creative type person, you will realize that you'll never be done and arrive. It's a journey that really has no destination. So that's a little hard for a lot of folks to understand and to deal with, because that's a little different. So be patient with yourself. Keep working at things. Know that it will always take more time than you think. So that's habit number one. Habit number one, be patient. Habit number two is to be persistent. Persistent means keeping at it even when you feel like you're not making any progress, to keep going, keep going. Let me give you a visual aid for this. Here's the visual aid. This is what it feels like your photography journey should be like. Over time, you get better. And the more time you spend, the better you get. The more you feel like you're doing what you want to do. You're creating the things you want to create. The images you are making look the way you want them to do. They're telling the stories you want to tell. So that's the expectation. Here is the reality. The reality is that over time, you will hit plateaus where you feel like, you're not making any growth. You're just spending time, and it's just, and the growth is taking longer, much, much longer. And you have to keep working through these flat spots, through those spots where you feel like, it's the same as it was yesterday or the same as it was a year ago. So you have to keep pushing through those things. It's hard. You feel like you want to give up. But remember, habit number one is to be patient, knowing that this is going to take more time than I thought. So in those flat spots and those times where you feel like not much is changing, I'm not really improving, I don't have time to give to this right now, I have a life, I have a job, I have other circumstances that are causing me to not be able to do the growth I want. Just keep working at it. I know it's easy to say just, and I apologize for that. Know that if it's something you care about, you have to keep working through it. And it's okay to sometimes put more energy into it than others. Be patient with yourself in that, but do keep pushing forward. There is growth always possible. It's just a matter of working at it. So habit number two is be persistent. So habit number three is to seek inspiration. That will help you grow as a photographer in lots of different ways. When you see things that you think, I would like to do that, I want to find out how that happens. Or when you see something that makes you're so grateful that someone made something, that you want to make something for others as well. And it doesn't have to even be photography. It could be music, it could be food, it could be architecture, it could be any of the visual arts or other creative arts, that someone has made something and that causes you to want to make something. So one thing to be aware of with this is it's really easy to get lost in seeking inspiration and forget to go create on your own, to get sucked into YouTube, to get sucked into Instagram, to be in books all the time, to go to movies, to be watching things, to get soaking all this stuff in, and to forget You need to make something. That's how you're going to grow. At some point, all that stuff you've soaked up needs to find its own expression. So get the inspiration, but don't overdo it. So one of the things to be aware of with inspiration is you can overdo it. You can have too much of it and so much so that you just keep procrastinating to make your own art. Think like you're not good enough yet. You're not ready. But the only way you're going to get good is to do it. So the more you do it after you've been inspired, the better you will get more quickly. There's a quote around inspiration from an artist named Chuck Close. He says, inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us show up and do the work. The rest of that is, the quote is, in doing the work, we often find the inspiration. So don't forget that one way to find inspiration is to get out and go take photos, to get out and do something, to be out there creating, doing the thing, hopefully that feeds you, nurtures you. So that's habit number 3, seek inspiration. Habit number 4 to growing as a photographer is to keep learning. There's lots to this part. There is the technical side of things. There are skills and new things you can learn, techniques. The cameras are always changing. The technology there in digital photography will always be changing and growing. So learn that. But I wouldn't put the emphasis of learning on the technical stuff. I would put the emphasis on learning, on finding out about yourself, finding out what others have done, both historically and recently, to see what you can learn, what helps you then become inspired, so you can be patient and persistent. So it's all kind of connected. So by learning, it's exercising your brain, which is your biggest creative muscle. In fact, your only creative muscle. So the more you learn, and it doesn't have to be directly connected to photography, learn a new skill. Maybe learn, if you don't know how to cook, learn how to cook. If you don't know how to use a certain piece of software, learn that. If you don't know how to write haikus, learn how to write haikus. But learning grows your brain. A bigger brain helps you be more creative and try new and different things. So keep learning. That's habit number 4 for growing as a photographer. Habit number 5 for growing as a photographer is to connect your photography to something you already enjoy. So connect your photography to something you already enjoy. Here's an example. My wife and I, Debbie, is also a photographer, and we have those cool matching cameras that I've mentioned before. But she really enjoys flowers. She's a master gardener, and she loves taking photos of flowers. If you're a chef, take photos of your preparation, your process, your gear, your technique, your finished product. So connect your photography to things you already enjoy. Connect your photography to travel, connect your photography to hiking, to being outdoors, to nature, to people, all those kind of things that are out there that once you connect your photography to them, it adds a layer of richness to the things you create, and also helps get you motivated, inspired, so you want to keep learning and you're more patient. Again, it's all connected. So habit number 5 to growing as a photographer is to connect your photography to another interest you already have. Habit number 6 for growing as a photographer is to find photo friends. Find folks you can share this interest with, preferably close by. I mean, distance is okay, but there's something kind of special about walking around and taking photos, working together to create photos. Debbie and I do that quite often. We take photos together. It's another way for us to connect, which is awesome. But another thing that's really cool about having photo friends, there's a couple things, is one is if you're like me on the nerdy side of photography and you love the specs and that kind of thing, potentially you have someone you can nerd out about photography with. Most folks aren't interested in all that, want to know the latest lenses and how fast they are and blah, blah, blah. But if you have a photo friend, you might be able to feed that side of your personality in photography. Another thing, and this is something I've used, is they provide some accountability. So if you say, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this and that and that. If you give them a deadline and say you're going to do that, at least for me, that's a helpful motivator. That gets me going to say, oh yeah, I told this person I was going to do this, so I tend to get it done. So photo friends are awesome. They can also provide critique, so give you feedback, an opportunity for you to give feedback, suggest areas for growth, suggest areas of things that are doing well, and just all those things that sometimes when you're looking at your own photos, you overlook because they're your baby. So letting someone else, trusting someone else to look at your photos, offer advice and feedback is a really wonderful thing. So that's habit number, what are we on? That was 6. Habit number 6 is to find photo friends. Habit number 7 for growing as a photographer is to take your camera everywhere. You can't take pictures if you don't have your camera. I know you have your phone with you probably, or your phone is your camera, and that's great. But have it ready, be aware that it's always there. If you have a larger camera, it's a little bit more of a commitment, but it's still worth it. There's oftentimes I've been driving and I didn't have my camera, and there was fog over the lake, and I'm like, I should take a picture of this. So get in the habit of doing that. It's worth a little inconvenience, I think, for the ability to capture these things, to grow, to learn, and to practice. One note of security on this, just a suggestion and a tip, would be never leave your camera in the car. Have a good camera bag that you carry it around. Again, it's a little more inconvenient, but sometimes that's the price of learning stuff, of growing and changing. If it was always comfortable, everybody would do it. So take your camera with you everywhere. You don't have to take every lens if you have a bunch. I tend to just take one and call it good. So take your camera with you everywhere. That's habit number 7 for growing as a photographer. Habit number 8 for growing as a photographer. Habit number 8 for growing as a photographer is to become a more interesting person. If you want your photos to be more interesting, if you want to create things that are more interesting to more people or have a potential to be more interesting, then the more interesting you are as a human being, it tends to be more interesting the things you create. So here's an example. If all I ever did was listen to the same kind of music, watch the same type of TV show, and stayed inside all day, there's just certain things I can't do because that's my experience, that's my life, those are my inputs, which do affect your outputs. So the more things you can expose yourself, different types and genres of music, different ages of music, if you want to go with music, different types of other visual arts, different types of books, different geographies, different locations, get outside, do different things, do things that you wouldn't normally do, so that helps you become more interesting. Try new foods. Sometimes that's as simple as that. Try new experiences makes you more interesting. You can now synthesize, add that experience to the experiences before, and now you have a richer set of ingredients, a paintbrush, a palette, if you will, to draw from as you're composing and creating photos. So habit number 8 to growing as a photographer is to become a more interesting person. Habit number 9 to growing as a photographer is to ask for help. Don't be shy about saying, I don't get this, I want to try this, I don't know how it works, or I'm doing this, but I'm not getting that. That happens. All of us have different things that kind of come naturally to us when we're learning new things, and some things that are much harder. So we all have weaknesses, we all have strengths. So in those moments of where you're confronting a weakness of knowledge, experience, or just ability to get something done, please feel free to ask for help. You can always ask me for help. Most photographers are of the type of personality that they want to share how they did it. They don't really guard the secrets because there really aren't any secrets. There's, you can find it on YouTube or wherever, or Google it quickly. Someone probably will have you have an answer to whatever problem you're having. But it's kind of neat, again, going back to the find a photo friend, if you have people along the way that you can quickly contact, who can understand and answer the question in a way that you understand, who can repeat it over and over again until you do get it. That's okay. That's okay. Keep asking. Don't let that get in the way of the thing you want to do next. Try different. You have to ask for help. I've done it. I'm not good at it, but I have done it. And in doing that, it's helped me a bunch to quickly overcome something that's been maybe bugging me for a while. Then it feels so much better when you're done. So habit number, what are we on? 9 is to ask for help. That will help you grow as a photographer. Habit number 10, looking at my cheat sheet, is to look for challenges and change. If you're always doing the same thing, you're going to get the same photos. If you always live and stay and photograph in the same area, you'll get the same photos. Now, weather and whatnot may change, but your photos and your experiences will not be as rich because you haven't had as rich of experiences. Grow, challenge, change, get uncomfortable. That's one of the 11 habits for more interesting photos, is to get uncomfortable. So challenge yourself, grow, change. For me, a recent example of that is in 2018. I did a number of things that were uncomfortable. I don't like change. But Debbie and I went to London. So I don't like flying that much. It's a 9-hour flight from Seattle to London. I did it okay. It was a nice, smooth flight, so that helped a bunch. But one of my favorite photos from that trip happened at a time when I was really uncomfortable. I don't like bridges. I don't like heights. So there's lots of bridges across the Thames River. And at the end of one day, I said, well, I can walk across this bridge. We don't need to catch the bus. I can walk. It was the Tower Bridge. So about halfway across, a little less than halfway across, I looked over my shoulder, saw this sunset picture happening over the Shard. And even though I'm kind of uncomfortable, I got one of my favorite photos. And I couldn't have gotten this photo from this perspective any other way. I had to get uncomfortable. So whatever that means for you, you have, I'm sure, things that are uncomfortable. Maybe it's asking for help. Maybe it's finding friends. Maybe it's being patient. So all those things, once you do them, and hopefully the discomfort is not very long. It's mostly in your head most of the time, and you can go over that hump really quickly, and then helps you to grow a little bit more and change and learn. So that's habit number 10, which is to get to grow, change, to seek challenges, to try different things to help you grow as a photographer. Last but not least, we're on habit number 11, which is to develop your voice as a photographer. What does that mean? I borrowed this phrase from a photographer I've learned a lot from philosophically. His name's David Duchemin. I'll have a link to his website below. He, rather than calling it style, which is very surface level. I have a style. My haircut's been the same forever, and I wear the style of glasses, and wear a style of clothes, but that's superficial. And that can be replicated by anybody else who would wear the same glasses, have the same haircut, wear blue jeans all the time. But my voice is unique to me. That's one way of identifying me, is my voice. So if you can do the same kind of thing with your photos, so it's deeper than surface level, it's deeper than color, it's deeper than what lens you use, what camera you use. It's all those things combined, plus the way you take images, the time of day, maybe how you compose images, what type of lens you use. So it's all the ingredients that you're using to make images coming together. So over time, that will become more obvious, hopefully. You will develop a way of taking photos that's a you photo. I can look at most photos and say that's a Michael photo. Most of my photos, and it's taken time to get there, so I had to be patient and persistent and find photo friends. Well, all these things I'm talking about. So, but this voice happens over time, and sometimes it only happens in retrospect. You don't necessarily go out searching for your voice, saying, I want to do this. That's more of a style thing. But it's the things you repeat and do over. So the type of subject matter, the way you compose, the way you edit, the way you choose to spend your time taking photos, all of that goes into becoming your photographic voice. So I really like that concept, that a voice versus style, and developing that. Once you're aware of that, then it becomes a little easier to know, well, why don't I don't want to take pictures of that. Well, it's not something I enjoy, so don't take pictures of it. It's not a subject that I find interesting and can connect to, so it's not part of my voice and vocabulary, so I will take pictures of other things. So it can reduce your frustration and strengthen what you're already doing. Now, I have to be a little careful here because that's kind of in direct contrast to the habit of seeking challenge and change and new things and inspiration. So hopefully your voice will evolve over time. It will become a little different in a year or two. It'll maybe slowly change, or maybe revolutionary change. You might have something that changes your life that also changes your photography. Realize that your voice, the way you take photos, is very much a function of who you are as a human being. So that's awesome. That's the best part of taking photos of any creative art expression, is it's a result of who you are. Only you can make it. Only you can create this one thing. So please keep doing it. Be persistent, be patient, find the inspiration, all these other habits that will result in you making photos that only you can make. And hopefully you'll feel like the world's a better place, because I think most of the rest of us will as well. So those are the 11 habits for growing as a photographer. I hope you found that helpful. If you have any feedback, comments, suggestions, please leave a comment below. If you have a habit you do consistently that you'd like to add to this list or make your own video about, please, again, I'd love to hear about it. Those are the things I've done for the past so many years that I found helpful to me, and I hope you have too. So I hope to see you again soon on YouTube. Until then, bye.